Well, all right. Jennifer Bordy in the house.
Hey.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good. Friday.
It is Friday.
Only one more day to work.
Not necessarily.
Well, for me, not for you, but.
Well, actually, I never work on Saturdays. So
Well,
if you
yeah.
consider Sunday being the start
I used to
of the
only
work
work on Saturdays.
Oh, that's right. But
Yeah.
not me. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
That is my day of rest, my Sabbath.
All right. Well, what we need to talk about today, if I want to use physical force on someone,
Like I want to beat the
I want
out
to
of you.
beat the out of you.
Because you threaten me
Yeah,
all the time. Yeah, we're gonna
Because you didn't vote the way I wanted you to.
Yeah, we have a whole nother discussion there.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we're going to continue our discussion. We talked last week about a very well-known case out of Montana in Missoula that involved the claimed use of force in defense of, turned out, occupied structure. They originally said both in defense of person and occupied structure, changed it for trial, and that was one of the issues on appeal. And the Montana Supreme Court affirmed that man's conviction for setting up his garage, intending to lure burglars, and killing somebody that he actually lured that way.
Just spraying the garage with his
Yeah,
with
just
his
spraying
shotgun.
the garage. Let's just go out there and spray our garage
That's
if we
right.
think someone's in there, which, as you now know, will not work. It's the defense.
Well, good. Plus, you got to fix the garage.
Well, that too, and the house. So we're going to talk about the different kinds of justifiable use of force, is what it's called in Montana, or self-defense. And in the case of defense of your property, your real property, it's also known as the castle doctrine. In other words, my home is my castle type of thing. So first of all, and the most obvious one, is that you can use force in defense of yourself or another, and you can use force that might cause death or serious bodily injury if you believe that's the kind of force that person is going to use against you. So that's fairly straightforward. It is pretty hard to prove in Montana. I would say that even with the changes in the self-defense laws, which we got in 2009, before that it was a total quagmire.
Yeah.
You absolutely probably could never prove justifiable use of force because there was this really circular reasoning that the state had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt certain elements of an offense, but for an affirmative defense, such as justifiable use of force, you were admitting you did that.
Yeah.
Yes, I purposely or knowingly killed that person, but I did it because they were going to kill me.
Right.
But it's hard. That's what the jury
So we still
considers
got a
first.
dead body here somewhere.
Yeah, the jury considers first whether you purposely or knowingly killed someone, and then if you did, that's the crime. So it's
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
exactly. So in 2009, there was a huge overhaul of Montana's justifiable use of force. In fact, in many other states, it was the state's burden to disprove it as opposed to the defendant's burden to prove it, which they usually couldn't because of, again, state already having proved the elements of the crime itself. So there was this overhaul, and it really went a long way towards making the laws better. It didn't help the man in Missoula, obviously, because there's a point where you're not acting in self-defense. You're acting in a manner because you just want to do it. But I think that was the case there. So self-defense of person or others, like if somebody is about to hurt your child or your spouse, or technically it could even be a stranger, although then you might get into Good Samaritan laws. But regardless, you can also use force in defense of an occupied structure. And that's where the idea of an attached garage could get a little hinky. And it hasn't been decided for sure. The case in Missoula wouldn't count because that wasn't even the issue about whether or not the garage was an occupied structure.
What about your property itself, like your yard or...
Yeah, that you would be a little more dangerous there.
Is that your house?
You remind me of one of the cases that I thought was the biggest travesty also occurred, in East Missoula, where somebody was banging on a guy's door in the middle of the night, and he wouldn't quit banging, and the guy inside said, "Go away, you're at the wrong house, I have a gun," and the guy just kept banging, and so the guy finally shot him, and he was convicted, and self-defense did not work in that case. So but that was before the laws were changed in 2009 as well. But I always thought that case was a real travesty. That guy honestly felt threatened. This man wouldn't go away. He did finally open the door. I guess I didn't tell the story quite right. He finally opened the door. He never got inside the house. When he opened the door, the man did shoot him. So he was on the stoop or the porch or whatever. So your question about what if they're in your yard, I'd say you wouldn't be in quite as good a shape, perhaps.
Yeah, I would think there is, you could flee. I would think would be.
Well, actually, that's part of the change in the law. And it was actually case law that you didn't necessarily have to flee your own home, but then they codified it.
Perpetrator could flee.
So I'm looking for that particular statute.
While you look, let me take a quick break here, and we'll come right back. All right, it is 15 minutes for the top of the hour. Jennifer Bordy in the house. Tom Egelhoff, your morning mayor, and we have a caller waiting, Jennifer. So let's take a call. Caller, you are on the air with Jennifer. What's your name? What's up?
Hello, Jennifer. My name is Aaron. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Say, I've got a question for you. Okay, it's my understanding that the title of nobility statute in the Constitution was put there so that we would have one law covering everybody.
I didn't catch at all what you just said.
Oh, it's my understanding that the title of nobility clause in the Constitution is there so that there's just one law for everybody. There isn't a law for a hierarchy for politicians and a separate law for the people.
That there is or there isn't?
There isn't.
There isn't. And given that, if a cop shoots a citizen in a given situation, it should be, and it's declared legal, it should also be legal for a citizen to shoot another citizen in that situation. Otherwise, we would have a title of nobilities issue with the Constitution. Is that right? Am I thinking
I don't think your logic necessarily follows, but actually anybody making an arrest, for example, is also entitled to use necessary force and or if that person, after having been arrested, escapes. So, but in terms of the logic, I don't think I follow that. So.
Okay, but as a citizen, if I'm trying to make an arrest on somebody, I have the same authority as a police officer?
I don't know if I would say the same authority,
Citizen's arrest,
but
maybe?
there is. We still have that. Yes, absolutely. And you can even use force in making an arrest. So, and that is also one of the statutes. We had it before, but it was continued and codified, and I'm looking for that one now. I got them all here. So. And okay, so that's resisting arrest. Sorry, you can't use force to resist arrest, even if your arrest is wrongful, by the way. But it says a peace officer or other person who has an arrested person in custody is justified in the use of force to prevent the escape of the arrested person. And somewhere else it does say, in another part of the code, it does say that even non-officers can use a degree of force in making an arrest. So,
yeah, if you come home and find a burglar in your home.
Yeah, you can try to arrest him, or
whatever.
So then, so in my way of thinking, it kind of does. We are afforded the same protections as a police officer when it comes to that.
To a degree, yeah. In that particular area, yes. There's other ones.
Does that go back to our vigilante days in Montana?
I don't think so. No, because vigilante usually, by almost definition, means they're using too much force. So. It depends.
So what about that cop in Billings that shot two people so far? Do you think that there should be a law in the books that says, hey, look, you can't get through your career without shooting multiple people. You got to go?
Well, I don't know that the law would say that, but every officer involved shooting is investigated. And admittedly, even those that are actually not convicted or tried for it almost are always acquitted. Police officers almost uniformly are acquitted. But regardless, it is investigated, and in numerous cases, they actually are prosecuted. They're just not convicted usually.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the call. We're going to take another quick break. We'll be right back. All right, 8 minutes before the top of the hour. Jennifer Bordy in the house, Tom Egelhoff in the house, and I guess if you're going to use deadly force, you're born to be wild. So that's...
So
Yeah.
here's the answer to your question about your yard.
The yard. Am I safe in my yard?
The third type of justifiable use of force is use of force in defense of other property. And the statute specifically says that you're justified in the use of force or threat to use force, like get out of my yard or I'll shoot you, against another when and to the extent that the person reasonably believes that the conduct is necessary to prevent or terminate the other person's trespass. So that could be into your yard on or other tortious or criminal interference with either real property other than an occupied structure or personal property lawfully in your possession.
So if they bring the dog in the yard without the plastic bag, I can shoot them.
Well, yeah, I don't think you can shoot them on that basis, but you can definitely threaten to shoot them.
Can I fire the gun in the air, maybe? Or
yeah, you
at
could
the
probably
ground?
fire a warning shot, but those can have their own dangers.
That's true.
So you have no duty to summon help or flee if you are lawfully in the place where you are and you're threatened with bodily injury or loss of life. So you don't have to retreat. You don't have to call the police. You can go ahead and use force as long as it falls within the other definitions that we just talked about. So those are the times you can use it. Now, I just want to make one other thing really clear, and maybe I have time to talk about use of force by the initial aggressor as well. But you are still allowed a parent or an authorized agent of a parent or guardian, master, or teacher. I'm surprised this is still in there, actually. Teacher is justified in the use of force that is reasonable and necessary to restrain or correct a person's child, ward, apprentice, or pupil.
Really?
And yet, teachers, I don't think you better take that to heart. I think if you used force on a pupil, you would be fired immediately. So don't listen to that statute.
Well, could let's say, could you take it to court and say, hey, that's a wrongful termination? Because it says in the statute that under certain circumstances.
Well, there might be a school policy that regardless of the statute, you can't use
school
force.
policy would trump law?
Yeah, probably.
Really?
That's a good question, though. I got to think about that one.
So pot smoking in the halls is okay?
Well, there's probably a school policy against that as well. But, if you have your medical marijuana card, you still probably can't do it. There you go.
All right.
All right. So one of the new statutes that was, I think, actually quite good, I don't know if it's actually ever been used, is that law enforcement now has to investigate if there is a claim of justifiable use of force, then they have to investigate whether or not there was justifiable use of force. Mm-hmm. What they usually do is just whatever they can to
examine the scene.
Yeah. And
so if
their investigations are always intended to just establish guilt.
If the gunshot's going into the floor with a big pool of blood, it's probably a chance he wasn't charging me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
That definitely would be bad evidence that you were, but it's not unusual. And I don't think people really appreciate it. It's very, very common, as a matter of fact, that even if you initially use force justifiably, then you're going to keep using it even once it's not necessary. For example, someone's charging you, you shoot them, they go down. It's not uncommon to just keep shooting them until the clip is empty or whatever. So
I don't want him getting up again. So
most people are caught up in the adrenaline of the moment.
Well, the other thing I was thinking about, is I'm a fairly good-sized guy, but I'm an old guy. But my wife is 5'3" and 100 pounds maybe on a good day, and I'm thinking that age versus strength or youth or things like that may cause her to start firing sooner than.
And actually, there's old case law that looks at those kinds of factors. And also, though, in partner or family member assault, when it's statutorily required, in essence, for officers to make an arrest, and if, for example, the so-called victim was the primary aggressor or the first aggressor, they're going to look at who is the primary aggressor based on factors you just said.
So if there's somebody in the house that shouldn't be there, then
it could be a factor, obviously. But I don't think you necessarily have to use it under the type of situation where someone has broken into your home. I don't know why all these cases are in Missoula, but there was also a Missoula case where somebody broke into a couple's home, tied them up, beat them, did all kinds of things. Well, the husband was eventually able to escape his ties, his bonds, and he killed the intruder, and he was not prosecuted. that was a pretty clear-cut case.
Yeah, of self-defense.
Yeah.
I got the marks to prove it. Huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think the intruder might have raped the wife as well.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so he was not prosecuted. So that was one time where they looked at the facts and they said, oh, yeah, that looks like self-defense. We're not prosecuting you. So now, now that was before this change in the law as well. But now they have to, or they're supposed to, look at these circumstances that might also prove justifiable use of force. And so I think I have another minute. I just want to talk about if you're the aggressor, let's say you hit somebody, but then they pull out a gun. So then can you struggle, get the gun away and kill them? The answer is yes, but you have to be careful because there are special rules about the person that uses force first. And you're not entitled, as a general rule, to use self-defense unless things get out of control or you try to stop the violence and they won't stop. Whatever, there are certain rules that bring you out of it, but be careful going into it because it may not be available to you.
Okay. Let's take a call. 522-TALK is the number, 522-8255. Caller, you are on the air with Jennifer Bordy. What's your name? What's up?
Hey, this is Richard. I was just wondering, Jennifer, how the laws are affected by someone that is, I guess you would call a registered black belt, formally trained military, or somebody that's just private that has been highly trained in self-defense. Does that affect any of these laws in your ability to properly still protect yourself when they know or the police can prove that, you have training that you should have walked away versus somebody that's not trained at all that could use a deadly force? Is there any laws that affect that?
There are cases
Hey, thanks for the call. I'm up against the clock.
Can deem somebody who's specially trained that way or a black belt that it may not be considered justifiable use of force. And in fact, even I think a boxer's hands in a case out of California or someplace were considered a weapon. So
lethal
definitely
weapon
have to
type
be
person,
you definitely have to be more careful and probably should instead walk away. Yep.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. Always a pleasure. Always informative. Thanks for coming in. And Mike McCormick will be in next, hopefully. And we'll be back right after the news. News Radio M 1450 KMMS of Bozeman, 1340 KPRK in Livingston, online, KMMSAM.com. Fox News is next. Mike McCormick after that.